We're now going to have a look at how we calculate the balances in our ledger accounts at the end of an accounting period. Now, once we've recorded all of our transactions from the books of prime entry into the ledgers, at the end of an accounting period, and this could be at the end of each week or each month or even each quarter, we will calculate the balances in each of the ledger accounts. And this is sometimes known as closing down the accounts. Now, how we go about doing this is the same for all different types of accounts. So it's the same for an account in the general ledger as it is for an account in the sales ledger and in the purchase ledger. But the process does vary slightly depending on whether we're calculating balances at the end of an accounting year. If that's the case, then we've got to take care to transfer any balances in the ledger accounts that represent types of income or types of expense to our profit and loss account, or if we're calculating balances partway through an accounting year, we will simply carry balances down to the start of the next period for all of the different ledger accounts. Now, I appreciate that might not make too much sense until we've seen one or two examples. But on this course, we're going to be assuming that we are calculating balances partway through an accounting year. As regards the first scenario where we're doing it at the end of an accounting year, we will look at how we go about that on a later course. So let's go through an example to show how we calculate the balance at the end of the period and how we record that balance. We have a sales control account and we've got all of the transactions that have been transferred there from our books of prime entry. So let's see how we calculate the balance at the end of January. The first thing that we do is we add up all of the figures that are recorded in the debit column and in the credit column. So I've got 60,000 recorded in the debit column and 45,000 in the credit column. The second step is that we'll record a balancing figure in our T account so that the totals of the debit column and the credit columns add up to the same figure. Now, if you remember, we had 60,000 on the debit side and 45,000 on the credit side. So we need to add a balancing figure of 15,000 to the credit side. Now we will label this the balance carried down. Sometimes you might also see the term balance carried forward. The next step that we take is we will add up the totals in our debit and credit column and we'll put a border around these totals. So I'll put 60,000 on the debit side, 60,000 on the credit side, and I'll put a border around those two figures. Please note also that it's convention to have those two totals on the same row. Now our final step is to bring our balance to the start of the next accounting period. So we're going to record a balance brought down underneath those totals that we've just calculated and entered. Now this is going to be the same figure as the balance carried down of 15,000 in this example, but we're going to record that 15,000 on the opposite side of the T account to where it was recorded as a balance carried down. So we'll record it on the debit side. We'll label that total of 15,000 as a balance brought down, not carried down but brought down, and it'll be dated the first day of the new accounting period, in this case the 1st of February. We'll now finish this session by looking at the situation where there is no balance left on a ledger account at the end of the accounting period. So let's have a look at an illustration to show how we deal with this sort of situation. On screen we have a bank loan account where there is £9,000 on the debit side and £9,000 on the credit side. So there is no balancing figure required. Well, in this scenario, what we don't do is we don't actually write down a balance carried down of 0. Instead, we don't have or record a balance carried down at all. We simply total up both columns, and then at the start of the next period, we don't have any balance brought down either. So where our debits and credits already equal each other, the process of closing down the account is very straightforward.